Ever feel like your players are starting to think they're invincible? Like they've got this whole D&D thing on easy mode?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there. Today we're diving into some devious plot hooks, specifically designed to challenge those mid-level players who might be getting a little too confident.
Right.
We're looking at excerpts from 21 D&D plot hooks for mid-level players who think they're invincible, published just this month. And let me tell you, some of these are next-level clever.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? You want to challenge your players, keep them on their toes, but you don't want to completely derail their fun or make them feel punished.
Right. It's not about crushing their spirits. It's about reminding them that even in a world of magic and monsters, actions have consequences. So how do these plot hooks strike that balance? Well, they're designed to work on multiple levels, targeting not just a player's abilities, but their assumptions, and maybe even their deepest fears.
What's fascinating is how these hooks exploit those little cracks in a player's armor of invincibility, those things they might not even realize they're taking for granted.
Exactly. And instead of just listing all 21, I thought we could break them down into categories, make them easier to digest. Sound good?
Absolutely. Categorization can help us appreciate the nuances of each hook and how they might be applied in different campaign settings.
Perfect. So first up, we've got what we could call supernatural consequences. These are scenarios where the environment, magic, or even reality itself reacts to a player's arrogance.
Yeah.
Imagine, for example, your most boastful player suddenly plagued by vivid nightmares. That's the hubris haunting in action.
And this isn't just a spooky encounter, it's a direct consequence of the player's actions. The haunting feeds on their inflated ego, actually weakening their abilities. Spells, fizzle attacks, miss their mark. It's like the universe itself is saying, not so fast, hotshot.
Okay, that's just cruel. Love it. But think about how you could tailor this to a specific player. Maybe their deepest fear is losing their voice, so the haunting manifests as a whisper that steals their words, making it harder to cast spells with verbal components.
Precisely. And you can foreshadow these effects subtly. Maybe the player's dice start rolling poorly, or they feel a chill when they boast about their accomplishments.
Right.
Little hints that something isn't quite right.
Okay, chills whispers. This is giving me some serious DMing inspiration.
Yeah.
But let's say our players are a little less susceptible to spooky whispers, a little more grounded in the material world. That's where something like Sands of the Ego comes in.
Yes, the desert that reflects a player's inner state.
Oh.
Talk about a harsh reality check. The more arrogant a player acts, the more treacherous the desert becomes. Sandstorms rage, mirages lead them astray, and water sources dry up before their eyes.
It's like the universe is saying, you think you're so tough. Try surviving out here.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. The only way to navigate this landscape is through humility.
Right.
How would your players react to that, do you think? Would they try to brute force their way through, or would they be forced to confront their own egos?
It's a fascinating dilemma, and it really highlights the importance of understanding your players.
Yeah.
Some thrive under pressure, while others might crumble. As a DM, you have to know your audience.
Absolutely. And speaking of knowing your audience, let's move on to a category that plays on a much more personal level. Deceptive forces. These are hooks that prey on a player's trust or perception of reality, introducing doubt and uncertainty into their world.
These can be incredibly effective, especially for players who pride themselves on their perceptiveness. Doppelganger deception is a classic example of this.
Oh man, doppelgangers. Just the word sends shivers down my spine. Imagine, your players are going about their business feeling confident and secure when suddenly they come face to face with an exact copy of themselves. Same skills, same memories, but with one key difference.
They embody all the player's strengths, but none of their weaknesses. Imagine the psychological impact of fighting a version of yourself who is completely ruthless, completely devoid of the moral compass that might hold a player back.
It's like holding up a mirror and saying, take a good hard look. Are you sure you're the hero of this story? How would your players react to that kind of mind game?
It would certainly test their limits, forcing them to question their own perceptions and perhaps even confront some uncomfortable truths about themselves.
And let's not forget about the false oracle, another fantastic example of a deceptive force.
Yeah.
You've got this mysterious oracle shrouded in mystery, maybe hidden away in a remote temple, offering prophecies of greatness.
Prophecies that are carefully crafted lies designed to inflate a player's ego and lead them straight into a carefully laid trap. It's a classic case of playing on a hero's desire for validation, their belief in their own destiny.
It's a harsh lesson, but a valuable one. Trust no one especially not a disembodied voice whispering promises of power. But here's the thing. Even if your players see through the deception, even if they manage to expose the oracle for the fraud, the seeds of doubt have already been sown.
And that lingering uncertainty can be just as effective as any outright attack, especially if it starts to create friction within the party. Do they trust their own judgment? Do they trust each other?
It's a recipe for disaster, and I am here for it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've talked about external threats, but what about the monsters we carry within?
Ah, yes, the internal struggles. These hooks target a player's inner demons, their own flaws and insecurities, and they can be some of the most compelling and challenging scenarios to run.
Absolutely. We're talking about hooks like the weight of confidence, where a player's own pride becomes a literal burden weighing them down with each boastful remark, each arrogant decision. Now I know what you're thinking. How do you represent that mechanically in the game?
That's where your creativity as a DM comes in. Maybe it manifests as disadvantage on certain rolls, or perhaps their movement is slowed as if they're carrying an invisible weight. You could even get really creative and describe physical manifestations of their pride, like subtle changes in their appearance or mannerisms.
And you can bet those changes won't go unnoticed by the other players at the table. Talk about an opportunity for some interesting role-playing and character development.
And it's not just about the mechanical effects. Think about the role-playing potential. The player might start hearing whispers of doubt, or their reflection in a mirror might show a distorted image of themselves. It's about creating a sense of unease of their own pride, slowly chipping away at their sanity.
Okay, that's just creepy. I love it. But let's not forget about those players who are driven by a hunger for power, for tangible rewards.
Right.
How do you challenge someone who thinks they've already won the game?
That's where a hook like the Curse of Empty Victories can be incredibly effective. Imagine this. Your players, they're riding high on a wave of success. Enemies fall easily, treasures practically fall into their laps, but something feels down off.
The thrill is gone.
Exactly. Victories feel hollow, treasures lose their luster, and a sense of disillusionment sets in. Suddenly, being invincible isn't so fun anymore.
It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. But on a more serious note, this hook really gets at the heart of what makes a game compelling. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the journey, the struggle, the feeling that you're constantly being challenged to grow.
And sometimes the greatest challenge is overcoming our own sense of apathy, that feeling that we've seen it all, done it all.
So true. But, for some players, it's not enough to just face internal struggles. They need a tangible temptation, something that calls to their ambition, even if it comes at a cost.
Ah, yes, the tests of character. These hooks are all about presenting your players with a delicious moral dilemma. The Grimoire of the Forsaken, for example. What self-respecting adventurer could resist the allure of a dusty old book promising untold power?
Seriously, it's practically a D&D trope at this point. But here's the twist. The more a player delves into the Grimoire's secrets, the more their own abilities start to fade.
Right.
Power for a price.
Yeah.
It's a classic Faustian bargain, and it can lead to some truly agonizing choices for your players.
And it's not just about the loss of power. Imagine the internal conflict. Do they continue down this path knowing they're sacrificing their own strength for knowledge? Or do they try to break free from the Grimoire's grasp, potentially losing access to the power they've already gained?
Talk about a recipe for some serious intra-party drama. And speaking of drama, let's talk about the Chalice of Hubris. This one just screams DM me.
The chalice that grants godlike power, but at a terrible unspecified price.
Okay, I have to ask, what kind of price are we talking about? What would be a fitting consequence for such a tempting artifact?
That's the beauty of it. You as the DM have the power to tailor the consequence to each player's deepest fears or vulnerabilities. Maybe it corrupts their soul, slowly turning them against their companions. Or perhaps it warps their body, twisting them into a monstrous reflection of their own arrogance.
Okay, that's just messed up. I love it. But let's be real, not every plot hook needs to be a soul-crushing descent into darkness. Sometimes you just want to throw a little chaos into the mix.
Chaos and a healthy dose of greed. Don't forget about the mocking mimic.
Ah, yes, the classic mimic, but with a deliciously wicked twist. Picture this. Your players, they stumble upon a treasure chest. Maybe it's hidden in a dragon's lair or tucked away in the ruins of an ancient temple. They know the drill. Check for traps. Brace for a fight.
And when they finally defeat the mimic, when they think they've outsmarted the classic dungeon trap, they claim their hard-earned loot. But little do they know, the real curse has just begun.
Because this isn't just any mimic. It's a mocking mimic, and its true power lies in its ability to amplify the greed of those who defeat it. Suddenly those invincible heroes are at each other's throats, willing to betray, steal, and even fight amongst themselves for the promise of more treasure.
It's a brilliant way to introduce conflict and tension within a party, especially if they've fallen into a pattern of always working together flawlessly.
And it really makes you think, what would you do if you suddenly found yourself consumed by an insatiable greed? Could you resist the temptation, or would you succumb to the allure of wealth and power?
It's a question that has plagued humanity since the dawn of time. But let's not dwell on the darkness for too long. There are other ways to challenge a player's perception of reality to make them question their own sanity without resorting to outright curses or manipulations.
You're talking about the Dreamweaver's maze, right?
Right.
Okay, that name alone is giving me chills.
Yeah.
It sounds like something straight out of a fever dream.
Because it is.
Imagine
This. A powerful, perhaps even whimsical entity, a Dreamweaver, offers your players a chance to escape into a world of pure fantasy, their wildest dreams brought to life.
Wow.
Who could resist such an offer?
Right. It sounds like a dream come true, literally.
But like all good things, there's a catch. The Dreamweaver's maze is designed to exploit a player's deepest fears and insecurities. What starts as a delightful escape quickly becomes a twisted game of psychological torment.
So it's like their own minds are working against them, conjuring up challenges tailored to their specific vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Talk about personalized horror.
Precisely. And because it takes place within the realm of dreams, the usual rules of reality don't apply. Spells might backfire in unexpected ways, trusted allies could transform into monstrous enemies, and the very fabric of their memories could start to unravel.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, this one's messing with my head a little. But in a good way. It's such a unique and creative way to challenge players on a psychological level, to force them to confront those aspects of themselves they'd rather keep hidden.
And it highlights the importance of dreams and nightmares in storytelling. They allow us to explore the subconscious, to confront our fears and desires in a safe, albeit unsettling, environment.
And let's not forget the potential for some truly epic reveals. Imagine a player finally breaking free from the Dreamweaver's maze, only to realize that the challenges they faced were manifestations of their own deepest anxieties they might not even have been aware of before entering the maze.
It's a powerful tool for character development, forcing players to confront those aspects of themselves they might otherwise try to ignore. And sometimes that confrontation can be the catalyst for incredible growth and change.
Well said. But speaking of growth and change, let's talk about a hook that embodies those themes in a truly mythical way. The Phoenix's rebirth. Now I know what you're thinking. What does a fiery bird have to do with challenging invincible players?
Everything. Imagine this. Your players, they encounter a phoenix. Maybe it's guarding a sacred artifact, or perhaps they stumble upon its nest in a volcanic crater. They engage in battle, confident in their abilities, and they win.
Okay, but it's a phoenix. You can't exactly kill something that's reborn from its own ashes.
Exactly. And that's where the real challenge begins. The phoenix rises again, stronger than before, and it's not done with your players yet.
So it's like a never-ending cycle. The players think they've won, they let their guard down, and boom, the phoenix returns, forcing them to confront their arrogance and prove themselves all over again.
Precisely. It's a brilliant metaphor for the never-ending cycle of growth and challenge that we all face in life. Just when we think we've reached the pinnacle of our abilities, a new obstacle arises, forcing us to adapt, to learn, and to push ourselves even further.
It's a humbling reminder that true invincibility is an illusion. There will always be new challenges, new obstacles to overcome, and the only way to truly succeed is to embrace those challenges, to learn from our mistakes, and to rise again stronger and wiser than before.
And who knows, maybe after facing the phoenix a few times, your players might even start to see it not as an enemy, but as a teacher, a guide on their path to true strength and resilience.
Now that's a powerful image. But let's not forget about the importance of a little levity, a touch of the absurd. And for that we have the Jester's game.
Ah, yes, the realm where chaos and laughter reign supreme.
This sounds like it could go either way.
Yeah.
Pure whimsical fun or a descent into utter madness. What kind of jester are we talking about here?
Imagine a being who embodies both chaos and wisdom, using riddles games and seemingly nonsensical challenges to teach valuable lessons.
So we're talking riddles that make your brain hurt, challenges that defy logic, and maybe a healthy dose of slapstick comedy thrown in for good measure.
Absolutely. It's a complete departure from the usual dungeon crawling and monster slaying, forcing players to rely on their wit, creativity, and perhaps even a little bit of luck to succeed.
It sounds like a great way to shake things up, to remind players that sometimes the best way to overcome a challenge is to embrace the absurdity of it all. But I have to ask, What kind of lessons could a jester possibly teach a group of hardened adventurers?
The jester's lessons often revolve around humility, adaptability, and the importance of not taking oneself too seriously. They might present challenges that seem impossible at first glance, forcing players to think outside the box, to question their assumptions, and to learn to laugh at their own mistakes.
I love that. It's a good reminder that even in a world of magic and monsters, sometimes the best approach is to embrace the chaos, to find the humor in the absurdity of it all.
And sometimes the jester's lessons can be surprisingly profound. They might challenge a player's perception of morality, forcing them to question their own sense of right and wrong. Or they might present them with a choice that seems inconsequential only to reveal later on that it had far-reaching consequences.
It sounds like the jester's game is a delicate dance between chaos and wisdom, humor and heartbreak.
Precisely, and it's up to you as the DM to find the right balance for your players and your campaign.
Well said. But let's not forget about those hooks that tap into our deepest fears, the ones that make us question our own sanity. And for that, we have the echoing chasm.
The chasm that reflects a player's soul, echoing their innermost thoughts and insecurities back to them.
This sounds intense. How would a player even stumble upon something like this?
The chasm might be hidden within a labyrinthine cave system, or perhaps it lies at the heart of an ancient temple, guarded by enigmatic beings who test the worthiness of those who seek its secrets.
And I'm guessing it's not the kind of place you just stumble upon by accident.
No.
Hey,
Those who seek out the echoing chasm are often drawn to it by a desire for self-discovery, a need to confront their inner demons.
and what happens when they do?
The chasm reveals their true selves, stripping away any pretense or facade. It might show them their greatest fears, their deepest regrets, or even their darkest potential.
That sounds like a lot for a player to handle.
It can be, but it can also be incredibly cathartic. Imagine a player who has been carrying around a heavy burden of guilt or shame. The echoing chasm could offer them a chance to confront those feelings, to forgive themselves, and to move on.
That's a beautiful thought. But I imagine it could also go the other way. What happens if a player is confronted with a darkness they're not ready to face?
That's where you as the DM have to be careful and compassionate. The echoing chasm is not about punishment, it's about introspection and growth.
So how do you walk that line? How do you present this challenge in a way that's both compelling and safe for your players?
Communication is key. Before introducing a hook like this, talk to your players about their comfort levels. Let them know that they have the power to decide how deep they want to go, how much they're willing to confront.
That's a great point. It's important to remember that this is a game and it should be fun for everyone involved. But speaking of games, let's talk about a plot hook that takes that concept to a whole other level. The soul chain.
The chain that binds souls together, linking their fates in ways they could never have imagined.
Okay, before you explain, I have to ask, is this as creepy as it sounds?
It can be, but it's also a testament to the power of connection, the idea that our lives are intertwined in ways we might not even realize.
So how does it work? How would a group of adventurers find themselves bound by this soul chain?
Perhaps they stumble upon an ancient artifact, a cursed amulet, or a forgotten shrine. Or maybe they cross paths with a powerful entity who sees their potential and decides to bind their fates together as part of a grand cosmic game.
A cosmic game where the stakes are their very souls. That's intense.
Indeed. And the consequences of this bond can be both terrifying and exhilarating. Imagine a group of adventurers who suddenly find that they share each other's pain, their joys, even their thoughts.
Okay, that's just freaky.
Yeah.
I see why you like this one. It's like a DM's dream come true.
Yeah.
Built-in drama, heightened stakes, and endless possibilities for role-playing and character development.
Precisely. And because their fates are intertwined, every victory feels that much sweeter, every loss that much more devastating.
I bet. But it's not all sunshine and roses, is it? What kind of challenges would you throw at your players while they're bound by the soul chain?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. Imagine a group of enemies who can exploit their shared pain, targeting one member of the party in order to weaken the others. Or perhaps they're forced to confront a moral dilemma where one character's deepest desire directly conflicts with another's.
Talk about a recipe for some serious intra-party conflict. And because their souls are linked, any betrayal or act of violence would have devastating consequences.
Exactly. The soul chain forces players to confront not just external threats, but also the strength of their own bonds.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes our greatest strength lies not in our individual abilities, but in the connections we forge with others.
Beautifully said. But let's not forget about those moments of quiet introspection, those encounters that force us to confront our true selves.
You're talking about the mirror of true self, right?
Indeed, the mirror that reveals not our physical appearance, but the essence of who we are, flaws and all.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. How would you even begin to incorporate something like this into a campaign?
The key is subtlety and a sense of mystery. You don't want to force the confrontation. You want to create a sense of intrigue to draw the players in.
So it's not about punishment, it's about self-discovery.
Exactly. The mirror might be hidden away in a forgotten chamber guarded by a sphinx who riddles only in truths, or it might be a seemingly innocuous object that only reveals its true nature under certain conditions.
And when a player looks into the mirror, what do they see?
They see their true selves reflected back at them without judgment or embellishment. It might be a humbling experience, a chance to confront their flaws and insecurities, or it might be a source of strength, a reminder of their inherent goodness and potential for greatness.
It sounds like the mirror's message is open to interpretation depending on the individual player and their own personal journey.
Precisely. And that's what makes it such a compelling plot hook. It's not about dictating a specific outcome, it's about creating a space for introspection and growth.
That's a powerful tool for a DM to have in their arsenal. But let's not forget about those players who love a good mystery, a chance to flex their detective skills.
And for those players, we have the Puppeteer's strings.
Okay, now this one sounds like it could lead to some serious paranoia and distrust. Tell me more.
Imagine this. Your players start to notice that something is amiss. Their actions seem slightly off movies, their words don't quite match their intentions, and they're plagued by a nagging feeling that they're not in control of their own thoughts.
It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. But who or what is pulling the strings?
That's the mystery they have to unravel. It could be a master manipulator, a puppet master in the truest sense, who delights in playing with the lives of mortals. Or perhaps it's a malevolent entity, a demon lord or an elder god, who seeks to sow chaos and discord in the material plane.
So it's not just about fighting monsters and overcoming obstacles. It's about uncovering a conspiracy about separating truth from illusion.
Exactly. And as the players delve deeper into the mystery, they'll start to question everything they thought they knew.
Do they trust their own memories? Can they even trust each other?
Those are the questions that will plague them every step of the way.
Talk about a recipe for some serious paranoia. I can see why this one is a favorite of yours.
It's a classic for a reason. It taps into our deepest fears of losing control, of being manipulated by forces beyond our comprehension.
And in a world of magic and monsters, that fear is amplified tenfold.
Precisely. But it's not just about scaring the players. The Puppeteer's strings can also be a powerful tool for exploring themes of free will identity and the nature of reality itself.
Deep thoughts for a podcast about D&D plot hooks. But I have to ask, what happens if the players fail to uncover the truth? What if they can't break free from the Puppeteer's control?
That's where things get really interesting. Do they become unwitting pawns in the Puppeteer's game, their actions having devastating consequences for themselves and those around them? Or do they find a way to turn the tables to break free from their puppet master and exact their revenge?
Ooh, I love a good revenge story. But let's move on to the final hook on our list, the Tower of Pride. Just the name itself evokes images of arrogance and hubris.
And for good reason. The Tower of Pride is a physical manifestation of those very concepts, a towering structure that materializes seemingly out of thin air, beckoning those who believe themselves worthy to ascend its heights.
It sounds like something straight out of a myth. So what makes this tower so special? What awaits those who dare to enter?
Challenges designed to test the very core of their being. Each level of the tower presents a new trial, a test of character rather than strength of arms.
So we're not talking about fighting monsters or solving puzzles.
Not in the traditional sense. The Tower of Pride tests a player's humility, their compassion, and their willingness to confront their own flaws.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Indeed. The Tower of Pride is a crucible designed to burn away the dross of arrogance and reveal the true hero beneath.
And I'm guessing that those who cling to their pride don't make it very far.
Let's just say the power has a way of dealing with those who fail to learn its lessons.
Okay, that sounds ominous. But for those who do manage to reach the top, what awaits them?
That, my friend, is up to you, the Dungeon Master, to decide.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
It could be a profound revelation, a life-changing reward, or even simply the satisfaction of knowing that they overcame one of the most difficult challenges of their lives.
Precisely. And sometimes the greatest reward is the journey itself, the lessons learned and the growth experienced along the way.
Wise words. It's wild to think that a simple game like D&D can offer such profound insights, not just about our characters, but about ourselves.
It's true. These plot hooks, even as we've been discussing them, they reveal something about our own understanding of strength resilience and what it means to face challenges both in the game and in our own lives.
Absolutely. And for you listening, as you think about your next campaign, those players who might be starting to feel a little too invincible, remember this. The greatest challenge you can offer them isn't a fearsome monster or an insurmountable obstacle. It's the opportunity to look within, to confront those aspects of themselves that they might be trying to hide even from themselves.
Because true strength lies not in brute force or magical prowess, but in the courage to be vulnerable, to embrace our flaws, and to never stop growing, even when it's uncomfortable.
So well said.
Yeah.
And who knows, you might just be surprised by what your players discover about themselves along the way.
Yeah.
Because in the grand tapestry of D&D, just like in life, it's often those unexpected moments of growth and transformation that make the story truly unforgettable. And that's a wrap on another deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of plot hooks designed to challenge even the most confident of adventurers. Remember, the best games are the ones that stay with us long after the dice have fallen silent.
So go forth, be bold, and craft amazing stories.
Until next time, may your games be ever challenging and your stories truly epic.